Hi everyone, welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. My card today is going to be using the stamp set called Incredible Like You. And although the floral image in that stamp set is probably the most predominant, I chose to use the striped border to create this card. I'm going to give you some tips about adhering the vellum as well as creating that background as we get started. Now, if you're here from YouTube, you'll be able to find a link down in the video description below, which will navigate you over to the pictures, cutting dimensions, and supplies for today's project. Let's head over to the stamp table and let's get started. Here's a close-up of the card we're going to be creating today. Lots of fun, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but there is a vellum layer here, and I'm going to give you some tips about using vellum and adhesive. I'm going to start with a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to bring in a small piece of grid paper. This 6x6 grid paper is absolutely wonderful to use in your stamp area. Of course, we do make it larger. This was intended for the Stamparatus stamp positioning tool, and I love it for just small, simple projects. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that here, and I've mounted the striped image from the Incredible Like You stamp set. You're going to be able to find this stamp set in the Current Occasions catalog. If you don't already have a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a complimentary copy of the Occasions catalog as well as the annual catalog, leave me a comment below and I'll be happy to send them to you. And I'll also include the current sale brochure. The products in this catalog are free with a $50 product order, and we also have products in here free with a $100 product order if you happen to have a larger wish list. I'm going to ink up my image on the Memento ink pad. Whenever my stamp is larger than my ink pad, I really prefer to turn the image face up on my work surface and ink it this way. It assures that I get better coverage and I don't miss a spot. And I'm going to use my grid paper to help align my images the best I can. I like to start at the bottom and work my way up, so I'll go ahead and press lots of firm, even pressure to make sure you get a really good design. These lines are not meant to be even, so if you think that they don't look straight, it's because they're not on the stamped image. I'll go ahead now and I'll repeat that exact same process to fill this paper. You'll notice that my lines are not perfectly symmetrical, which means there are gaps in certain areas, and that's totally fine. I also have a strip of Whisper White cardstock, and I'm going to stamp with the Memento ink one more time, and I've chosen the greeting from that exact same stamp set. So we're going to go ahead and ink that up, and I'm going to stamp that here in the center. I'm going to use the soft seafoam ink to create the leaves and the stems, and I want to show this to you here in the stamp set. I think it's going to be a lot easier to see than trying to show you on the photopolymer stamp itself. There is a stem here, and you can see that there's buds, and then there are leaves or petals, depending on how you want it to look, that will fit inside of there. I'm going to be using the same color ink on both of these, and I'm going to be using another small piece here in the stamp set to add some detail. This is the solid image of the stem, so I'm going to go ahead and ink that up, and I'm going to work just on one side. And I want this to be the stronger tone, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill that in here. I'm going to stamp some here and some here. And I'll turn it one more time, and this time I'm going to turn my paper, and I'm going to add a little bit of detail over here as well. I've then picked up the leaf or the floral image. Of course, if you do this in color, it's going to look more like florals. I'm going to fill in those areas, and the stamp was designed to fit inside of here, but because I'm going to be doing the same color, I'm going to ink this one up, and I'm going to stamp off on my grid paper to make it lighter. And then I'm going to align this. I'm looking primarily at the top point here to fit in the top image here. And I'll repeat that exact same thing now with the rest of these. I'm switching now to the Blushing Bride ink pad, and I've pulled out that small image with the dots. And I'm going to ink this up, and I'm going to stamp off because I want it to look a little bit lighter. And I'm going to work those petals inside of the various areas around the stem. Don't worry about trying to position them just right. They don't have to be in any specific spot. Now, if those are too light for you, then you can go back over them, or you can stamp just outside of the original image just to give you a little bit more depth. The next thing I want to do is I want to create banner tips on this strip of paper. Now you can certainly use your scissors, and I want to give you a tip about that if you don't have what I'm going to be using. You're going to turn the paper sideways and you'll create a slit right in the center of the cardstock. The depth of the slit will determine the depth of the banner tip. Once the slit has been made, you're going to come from the outside corner to the top of the slit on both sides to give you your banner tips. But this is my best hack secret, and it is the tailored tag punch. I absolutely love this punch to create those banner tips. So I'm going to use it upside down, and you're going to be able to see here where that point or that tip is going to be made. So I'm going to slide my cardstock in, and I'm going to do the very best that I can to center this tip up the center of my cardstock, and then I'll punch. And then I'm going to turn that around, and I'm going to do the exact same thing here. And then you can take a look and see if it's about the size that you need. If not, you can go back in and trim it some more. We are ready to do some assembling, so I'm going to bring in my silicone craft sheet. I absolutely love this in my stamp studio because adhesive will not stick to it. Should it land on here, it simply just rubs right off. It's great for liquid glue and hot glue as well. And I'm going to take that striped border now, and I'm actually going to adhere it to a layer of basic black cardstock. So I'm going to add adhesive in my four corners. And then I'll leave a very small margin of color all the way around. I just wanted a very simple border of the black. I have a piece of Blushing Bride cardstock, and I'm going to fold that in half to make my card base. I'm a big fan of my bone folder for that nice crisp edge, so I'll go ahead and use that. And this piece is going to get centered on here. Once again, with my silicone craft sheet, I'm going to go ahead and add adhesive, and I'll go ahead and mount this in the center again, leaving about equal space all the way around. Next is that piece of vellum. I'm going to center that right on top of here. That's going to mute some of those stripes just a little bit so that our greeting or our banner is going to be predominant on this card. Now you can see mine is just a hair too long. So what I can do is I can come back in with my punch now, and I can trim off just a little bit more. So I'm going to do a little bit on one side and see how that works for me. I want to make sure that my words are fairly centered, which they are. Since I know my banner is going to go across the center, I can actually bring in my silicone craft sheet, and I can add adhesive just a little bit right down the center of that vellum, which will eventually be hidden by that banner. And I'm just going to center that again the best that I can. And then I'm going to take this banner and flip it over, and I'm going to use my dimensionals, and I'm going to add those to the back end. I'm adding a sufficient number of dimensionals since I know my card is going to go through the mail meter at the post office. The rollers in that meter can really do some work on your card. So I want to make sure that when it reaches the other side that it's going to actually look like I created it. And then this is going to go right across the middle. So there we go, a very simple yet striking card. Here's the one we made today, the one I made before you joined me. If you've enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button down below. And while you're here, if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, I sure would love to have you join us. Click subscribe, and next to it, make sure you click the little bell icon. That icon will give you notifications of when I upload a new video, as well as when I'm live here on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining me, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.